beware of wavering. Blot out suspicion of us, for we are God's creatures that have reigned, do reign, and shall reign forever. All our mysteries shall be known unto you. The Lamen and the Holy Table are inextricably linked. By wearing the Lamen over the heart, the magician becomes linked to the Holy Table. I cannot say it any plainer than that. But putting on the Lamen and sitting at the Holy Table are empty gestures unless the magician has some idea of what these items represent and how they are connected. The designs for both the Lamen and the Holy Table were distilled from tables composed of letters of the names of planetary angels of the Heptarchy. Even though the chronology of their reception is a bit tangled, it is probably easiest to discuss the Lamen first. Traditionally, a Lamen is a breastplate that is hung from the neck by a chain or ribbon. The breastplate of the High Priest of Israel is the biblical archetype for this most important piece of magical adornment. It was a square plate, a 3x4 grid embedded with 12 precious stones representing, among other 12 concepts, the tribes of Israel and the signs of the zodiac. Two versions of the Lamen were received by D. and Kelly. The first, delivered in 1582, was a rather odd assortment of lines, squiggles, and letters reminiscent of Solomonic or Gothic sigils. This Lamen, they were told, was to be made in gold and worn as a protective device. The 7 letter names of these angels were received by the complex manipulation and distillation of letters from a cross-shaped table composed of 7 7x7 tables. Venus, King Balagan, Prince Bornogo, Minister Bapnido, Minister Bishtim, Minister Blumopo, Minister Bmangal, Minister Basliv Sol, King Bobojal, Prince Perfaves, Minister Basmilo, Minister Bernal, Minister Branglo, Minister Brisley, Minister Benagle, Mars, King Babalal, Prince Pvt Mono, Minister Baspoma, Minister Blintum, Minister Brajip, Minister Bermalet 21, Prince Pliston, Minister Balsir, Minister Balmara, Minister Benpoggi, Minister Bunoffer, Minister Bemilges, Mercury, King Benaspol, Prince Borges, Ministers Baspalo, Minister Binodab, Minister Barajas, Minister Binofan, Minister Boldago, Saturn, King Benapson, Prince Bralges, Minister Bormilla, Minister Busknab, Minister Beminpol, Minister Batiro, Minister Bligan. It is obvious from the surviving material that some technique of practical magic was intended to call forth the Heptarchic kings, princes, and ministers. Illustrations of flat wooden discs containing the names of the kings and other unexplained characters tantalize us with glimpses of an organized magical system. After receiving the names, sigils, and hierarchical structures of the 49 good angels, the magicians were informed that the first Lamen they received during their actions the previous year was a false one, delivered to them by an eluding spirit. They were given instructions how to create a new one, which was to be worn not for protection per se, but in order to dignify the magicians as worthy practitioners of this form of magic. I'm going to try to illustrate how both the Lamen and the Holy Table were created and why I believe their use in Enochian magic is important. Now, the reader might be tempted to skim over the following material, invoking my slogan, "Don't try to duplicate the magic Dee and Kelly did to receive the system, just use the system they received." The key to the construction of the Lamen was a 12x7 table containing the letters of the names of the 7 planetary heptarchic kings and their princes. Mimicking the cooling phases of Big Bang creation, this 12x7 table was condensed from the 343 lettered squares of the much larger cross-shaped table. As you can see, the names of the kings are found on the right half of the table, the names of the princes on the left half. The names in this table are read from right to left. You will immediately notice that the kings of one planet are not matched on the same line as the prince of the same planet. This odd juxtaposition of planetary king and prince puts a certain strain on the sensitivities of those of us who like the order of our universe nice and symmetrical. However, this is the arrangement the angels insisted upon for the 12x7 table from which the Lamen was to be formed. As we will soon see in the following lesson, they will rectify the imbalance in the 12x7 table in order to create the Holy Table. But first let's continue to see how the Lamen is built. The basic form of the Lamen is a table of 24 enclosed within diamond square, enclosed by a square, enclosed by a larger square. The letters of the 12x7 table were applied to the Lamen by means of an exercise that first divided the table into 3 sections, described as flesh, heart, and skin. The letters were then transferred to the blank Lamen in 3 steps. Step 1. The letters of the flesh were added to the perimeter of the Lamen in their same relative positions to the 12x7 table. The letters of the 12x7 table were applied to the Lamen by means of an exercise that first divided the table into 3 sections, described as flesh, heart, and skin. The letters were then transferred to the blank Lamen in 3 steps. Step 1. The letters of the flesh were added to the perimeter of the Lamen in their same relative positions to the 12x7 table. Figure 9. Letters of the flesh on the Lamen. Step 2. The letters of the heart were added to the corners of the next inner square of the Lamen in a curiously inconsistent manner. Step 3. First, the corners of the skin letters were added to the corners of the innermost diamond square of the Lamen in a manner consistent with their relative positions on the 12x7 table. Second, the remaining 24 letters of the 12x7 table were then braided into the remaining squares in the center of the Lamen. As with the ring, gold was the material suggested for the Lamen, but it can be made from paper or poster board. The Lamen I first used was printed on both sides and laminated in plastic. In the area just above the top center I punched a hole through which I threaded a black ribbon.